What do you think, Rafi? Solid, didn't it? So like where obedience to parents, I think we've covered that well, haven't we? Like,
because that is, you've brought a new
framework to the picture.
New
it's
topic.
Like, people don't think outside the box.
Yeah, you have to think holistically about Islam. If you don't understand that there's 5 spheres of Islam, and then within that you've got like these hukuk, rights, and there's 3 kinds of rights, and then you have to find a balance between these rights.
Them, and then
unless you don't understand that framework, you're fighting over particulars without understanding the spirit of Islam. This is the spirit of Islam. This is understanding the spirit. When you understand the spirit, then the particulars make sense within that context.
This video is sponsored by Chai Pani Blackburn, the hottest place to get your Carrick chai in South Asian street foods. Open from early and closes late means you'll never miss out on all your favorite foods. With a great indoor seating area with friendly staff at your service to a large shared car park with a drive-through style attendant taking your order, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your vehicle. It's a perfect spot to meet and catch up with friends, so make sure you head down to Chai Pani Blackburn.
I'd like to cover
in partnership with Brain Cell Squared.
This particular topic when it comes to parents, because we're all, and we have a young audience anyways, and some of the young audience are becoming parents. What are the things that they should be looking out for within themselves, that right, okay, this is what I need to take from this podcast and apply it, because I'm going to be a parent soon or in the future, and I don't want to make the mistakes that the previous generations have done. Like you said, character, always improving on your character, always building your own character.
So the danger now is that because of the Western influence, we're focusing on the nuclear family. And we're forgetting the extended family, whilst Islam has guidance about the extended family as well. So the moment you get married, you focus on your spouse and you focus on your children. Everything else is secondary. Whilst Islamically you have rights towards others, that includes your parents. And that individualism is becoming dominant. And therefore we need to reconnect with that collectivism that we get because of our Eastern background. We need to reconnect with that collectivism, but reconnect with that collectivism whilst understanding that there's these 3 kind of hukuk. So not forgetting hukuk al-nafs in the process. By all means, understanding that Islam teaches us the importance of looking after your own rights, but not at the expense of the rights of the parents.
Not neglecting
your parents.
And it's true. And it's not like a lot of the youngsters would turn around and say, yeah, well, our culture has been wrong and look where it's taken us. Well, in fact, one of the positives that have come out of our culture, the Eastern side of it all, is look at how the West treat their parents in old age, and look at how the East treat their parents in old age.
Clearly a difference,
2 completely differences. Which one's better? We know which one's better. The world knows which one's better. So we can clearly see that
there's a difference.
There's a difference, and one's a negative difference and one's a positive. So if anyone's obviously watching this saying, yeah, but why do we need to go back to the Eastern way of things? Because there are certain positives that we can take from it. You don't hate your culture completely.
Unfortunately, you'll be seeing this a lot more where the Eastern side of our culture is moving away from it, and we're going towards the English Western ways, where we're seeing more Muslim parents, older parents, in care homes.
Yes, exactly. That's the logical conclusion.
Because they're bringing the
individualism.
I used to be a delivery driver and deliver parcels at certain places, right? Majority of the time, it's all 99% is all white people, right? Non-Muslims. But then there's one time, it's still in my heart. I still picture that lady's face. She's there by herself, and she's speaking Urdu, and I'm asking, just walking past. She goes, "Now, what are you doing here?" She goes, "Oh, my son dropped me off. He's not picked me back up yet. She's got dementia, I think." And he's just left it there because he's got dementia. And it's like, yeah, there are some people are like
genuinely
that.
need help. I get
it's
that.
just sad.
I like, okay. See, with me, I understand that if you come from a household financially, you're really struggling, and then obviously you have a parent, you need help. Everyone needs help. I get that. And what are your thoughts on exactly what you said?
Very good question. Very good question. So this is another misconception. When you personally caring for parents, your life changes, without doubt. Your life changes. That's one thing. And the other thing is you start to connect with people who have also experienced that themselves or are experiencing it. So you connect with other carers. And then the conversations that take place with the community of carers opens up another like world for you. So until you're not in that position, it's very difficult to empathize 100%. With how. But once you're in that world, then you start to talk to people, and there's so many people in that situation. Then you start to learn about what the experiences are of carers. Yeah. That's when you start to learn. So things I didn't appreciate 2 years ago, I'm now appreciating because I'm in that position.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making. That sometimes you don't, because we have blind spots, don't we, as human beings?
Yeah, of course.
So because you're not put in that situation, more often than not, that's going to be your blind spot.
Yeah. Because you've never thought about it.
You've never thought about it.
Any attention to it.
Exactly. You've had the privilege not to think about it. But once you put in that situation, you no longer have that privilege. You have to think about it. And then you also connect with people who are also going through that. So then you understand things. So in these conversations, you start to understand things. So another problem, another misconception, another problem why people are reluctant to care for their parents is because they think that they physically themselves in all circumstances must look after their parents.
That's my unfortunately my view of when my parents get older. That's what I would,
So everything falls on your shoulders, yeah? Whereas Islamically, that's not the case. So Islamically, what Islam teaches you is that you do that binafsihi, you do khidmah of your parents, khidmatul walidain, binafsihi yourself, or as the text, for example, al-Bada'i, Bada'i al-Sana'i is a Hanafi text, Ghasani, just in case you've got some viewers who have a deeper understanding of fiqh, they may want to see these references. Bada'i al-Sana'i mentions this, that you either do the khidmah of your parents binafsihi yourself, or bil ajir, or you hire someone to do it. So to do it yourself is not always obligatory. You can also get the support of carers.
So would that mean care homes, or would that mean bringing into the home?
Bringing carers into the home.
Into the home.
Because putting your parents into a care home more often than not is going to neglect their rights. So bringing in carers into the home, so social care is very important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Social care is, and alhamdulillah, still in this country we have access to social care. Alhamdulillah, that's a ni'mah, that's a bounty we have. So we should benefit from that.
Yeah.
So having carers visit your home a number of times during the day, that's important. Where there is still a problem when it comes to care is more often than not, care is not provided for the night. So you still have to then have the people that, so when I speak to other carers, the good practice is that the families that do this the best are those who have a rota for the nights. So when I've spoken to carers,
between themselves,
amongst themselves, that's the best approach. So they share the nights amongst themselves. So when I've spoken to people in the community, the people that have made it work really well, the good practice is that they share that responsibility amongst the siblings, and therefore they take turns. They have a rota in place for the nights. So it's usually care is a combination of you yourself physically caring for your parents,
as well as
and also bringing
outside
in
help
care
as well, bringing it in.
I like, obviously not just me, but a lot of people that are watching this may think like me, and feel like, obviously you've explained it better, so now I understand it. But before this, I would be like, no, I wouldn't call anyone in, I'll just be there myself. But then now you've spoken and said those things, that you're allowed to bring other help in.
Yes.
Because end of the day, you have a life, you have responsibilities elsewhere.
Comes back to hukuk al-nafs.
There you go. Do you know what I mean? So
yes.
If no one's learned, then I've learned something.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
So that again, so that's another thing that stops us from caring for one's parents. So again, if we have a better understanding of our tradition and of fiqh, then we can understand that not everything has to be done by yourself physically. You can bring in the support.
So I guess that's a good lesson for young parents or young people that are soon to be parents, or that are soon to find themselves in a position where their parents are going to need and require help. You're allowed to go out and get that extra help. There's no requirement on you to do everything 100% physically yourself.
Absolutely. Now, continuing on from that, there's another problem that we have in the community. So when you speak to other carers, this is another thing that we culturally deal with. So another issue is when it comes to looking after your parents, is that responsibility solely on the male children, or is that responsibility also fall on the female children as well?
So from experience, I don't know who the responsibility falls under mostly, which you're here to answer that, but from experience, I've always seen the daughters doing the most work. The daughters are always the ones going back, even though they're out of the family because they're married into a different family. They're always coming back, looking after their parents. Whereas the sons are still helping, but not as much.
Okay. What's your experience, Islam? What are your thoughts on this?
For me, I'd say for a father, the son should look after him.
Should. Yeah.
And if it's a mum, the daughter should look after, because obviously women have different.
But what if the daughter is married?
If she's able to, if she can get out of a situation or whatever she's in.
What happens in the community? If she's married, what happens in the community?
A community would say you look after your side, your new family.
Yeah.
You stick to all of that.
Good. This is what I'm getting at. So the moment a woman gets married, it's assumed in our culture that she no longer has any responsibilities towards the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we get that from?
Culture.
But what culture do we come from?
Oh, the
Indian culture.
Hinduism,
Indian culture.
India.
Indian culture, Indian subcontinent culture, Pakistan, Bangladesh, historically, all part of India. So our culture is like shared in that regard. So that subcontinent culture that we have, because the form, so there's a difference here in the collectivism. So Hindu culture and Muslim culture are both collectivist cultures because they come from the East, but there are obviously differences. So in Hindu culture, the way they approach it is that you get married and then you have responsibilities. The daughter then has responsibilities towards their in-laws after they're married. So that's how they structure their society, how they structure their community. That's how they do it. Now, Islamically, what do we say? Now, this is coming back to like this tension between culture and Islam. So when it comes to looking after your in-laws, what do we say? Our generation, what do we say of more literate Muslims? What do we say about a daughter-in-law's responsibility towards their in-laws?
She has no responsibility at all.
Absolutely. So in Hindu culture, what happens is you don't take the responsibility of your own parents when you get married. You then take on the responsibility of your in-laws and you treat them as your parents. That's what happens in Hindu culture. So that's one collectivist approach.
Completely on that side.
Collective. In our culture, what we're doing is we're taking that part that you don't have any responsibility towards your parents once you get married, but neither do you have any responsibility towards your in-laws. So it's like, what are you doing then?
Chilling. Just enjoying your life now, aren't you?
No, do you see the problem?
Yeah.
So on one hand, we're taking pot culture,
Yeah.
but then we're taking
So it's almost as if
best of both worlds.
so I'll take what's good for me. I'll take what's good for me, and whatever I'm not happy with. Well,
So culturally, the Hindu model can work as well. Culturally speaking, Islamically, what Islam has to say is, when you have the Quran, when the ayat of the Quran, the verses of the Quran, and the ahadith, the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, do they make a distinction between, when it comes to birrul walidain, being good to one's parents, do they make a distinction between male children and female children?
I don't think so, no.
They don't make a
children,
distinction. Where's the distinction in the Quran and Hadith between male children and female children? There is no distinction between male children and female children in the Quran and Hadith. Similarly, when we go into the fiqh, so because predominantly where we live in Blackburn, predominantly most people follow the Hanafi fiqh, like they do across the world. So in the Hanafi fiqh, there's a text called Al-Bahr al-Ra'iq. It's a sharh, it's a commentary of a primer. So in that text, Al-Bahr al-Ra'iq, the author quotes وَلَوْ كَانَ أَبُوهَا زِمْنًا مَثَلًا, that if one's father, if her father is disabled, for example, they may be bedbound. So if they, for example, are bedbound, وَلَوْ كَانَ أَبُوهَا زِمْنًا مَثَلًا وَهُوَ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى خِدْمَتِهَا, and he is in need of her care. He is in need of her care. وَهُوَ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى خِدْمَتِهَا وَالزَّوْجُ يَمْنَعُهَا عَنْ تَعَاهُدِهِ, and the husband stops her from attending to him, attending to the father. The husband stops her from attending to the father. وَالزَّوْجُ يَمْنَعُهَا عَنْ تَعَاهُدِهِ فَعَلَيْهَا أَنْ تَعْصِيَ, then it is obligatory upon her to disobey the husband.
because of the rights of the parents.
Yes. فَعَلَيْهَا أَنْ تَعْصِيَ وَلَوْ مُسْلِمًا كَانَ الْأَبُ أَوْ كَافِرًا, regardless of whether the father is a Muslim or not.
Yes, that's just put a lot into
So
perspective.
you've got a clash between the rights of the husband, the rights of the father. The rights of the father take precedence.
Yeah. So
So that's another misconception that we have. That it's only the son's responsibility.
Fair.
So
That's what,
it's
obviously, as I thought, like obviously, as a male, like a father, for example, I think he would be more comfortable. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying what my thought process is. That if my father would be more comfortable with me looking after him, bathing him, stuff that male kind of thing.
Very good.
But then
so that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Like
So if you're sharing the responsibilities, there's certain things that daughters will do for the mother that the sons can't do, and there'll be certain things that the sons will do for the father that the daughters can't do. So obviously all them things are to be considered. You can't ignore that. But that doesn't mean that you just focused on, that doesn't mean you don't share the responsibilities.
Right.
What about nafaqah? What about financially looking after your parents? So when it comes to financially looking after your parents,
so now this falls under inheritance slightly.
Not necessarily.
Because
it doesn't fall under inheritance, because it's about financially looking after your parents whilst your parents are alive.
So no, as in not under inheritance, but this is like similar to what I would think as how inheritance rules, because inheritance, the son gets a bigger portion. Why? Because he has bigger responsibilities. So financially, this would be a responsibility on him financially as a son for his parents.
That's another misconception. So another text, a Hanafi text, Al-Mukhtar, is a primer, and then the famous sharh of it is Al-Ikhtiyar li Ta'lil al-Mukhtar, is the sharh, the commentary of it. Al-Mukhtar mentions Nafaqatul Aba wal Ajdad, financially providing for one's parents and for one's grandparents, not just parents, grandparents, ajdad, yeah, grandparents, is alal awlad, is upon the children, الذكور والإناث, male and female children. Financially looking after one's parents if they're in need.
Right.
So they mentioned if they're not in need, then it's fine. But if they're in need,
then
both male and female children have a duty to financially provide.
See, we're not taught this.
Yes.
This way of looking at, put culture aside for a second, but as English people that are born here, raised here, where we weren't taught that this angle of the responsibilities of children, not boy or girl, children.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
If we were taught that, we'd have all of a different mindset towards parents.
So as long as the woman is earning, which in our case is more relevant, then she also has a responsibility of looking after parents.
What if she isn't earning?
If she isn't earning, then the ruling is different. So the fuqaha have gone into that.
Okay,
but if she is earning, then
she has her own money and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no.
Then she also has a responsibility.